Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Best Ever You Show. I'm Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino here with Ed Begley Jr. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Very good, Elizabeth. It's so nice to talk to you.
Thank you for being here with us. So, for those of you used to our audio podcast, we're switching things up a little bit here to do some fun things on Sunday nights, just to bring you some peace for your Sunday and Monday. I think the world needs a little bit of peaceful programming right now, and so we're bringing some guests in on Sunday nights, and I'm very grateful to Anthony Turk for bringing you here with us tonight. And yeah, here's our water. Just everybody kick back, relax, and let's have a conversation with you, Ed. How wonderful it is to hang out with you we're going to be here for an hour or so. So
It's
thank
a
you.
delight to be with you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me on.
And if people want to, look around while they're listening to us, what website would you like people to go to?
EdBegley.com has a lot of stuff there about, there's other ways to get there, BegleyLiving.com, but EdBegley.com is the easiest to remember. It all leads to the same place. We have a lot of tips from Rochelle about nutrition, what have you, and fitness and, things like that. Rochelle cares about that stuff. And I care about a lot of the, nuts and bolts kind of gearhead stuff, solar panels and good insulation and energy efficient lighting and HVAC units that are efficient. That's my kind of thing. But she wants it to look good. That was kind of the basis of our show. She wants things to look nice. I want them to work nice. But you can have both, as we've proven with this. What you see behind me a bit of, we have what's called a LEED Platinum home, a very energy efficient home. And I'll talk about that as much or as little as you want.
Oh, as much, please, because we have a humanities section on the Best Ever You network. And, that is one of the huge reasons why I wanted to have you as a guest, was to talk about the environment and environmental activism. And what's it like to be ahead of your time on that?
You know, I got started in 1970 for some bad reasons and some good reasons. The bad reason was living in the smog. Smoggy LA in the 50s and 60s was horrible, horrible, choking smog. And I got involved because the Cuyahoga River caught fire near Cleveland. I don't know about you, but I think it's a bad sign when rivers catch fire.
Yeah,
And,
very.
Santa Barbara oil spill, all sorts of things, all that's the negative. The positive was my dear dad. He was a conservative that liked to conserve. We turn off the lights, we turn off the water, we save string, we save tinfoil. He was the son of Irish immigrants. He had lived through the Great Depression. He never used the word environmentalist much, but he was one. And so he died within a few days of that first Earth Day in 1970. So I did a lot of this stuff to honor him more than anything. And I'll briefly say, and then I'll shut up. I want to hear from you, of course, but everything that I did in 1970, I was a broken, struggling actor. My dad had just passed, so I didn't have him as a meal ticket. It was all very cheap. It had to be because I couldn't afford it. So when people say to me, I can't afford a fancy electric car like you, I can't afford solar panels like you, I go, neither could I when I started. Do what you can today.
I love that. So I have environmental scientists all around me. Our son is getting his master's degree in environmental science. I have a meteorologist getting a master's degree. So we're on board, but I always wonder if we're doing enough. So for those people who just want to start doing something, what can we do?
There were a few choices back in 1970, and I did them all, the cheap and easy stuff. Pick the low-hanging fruit first, do what you can. Now there's even more that people can afford and will make a difference. We can't just change our light bulbs and we're going to all be okay. It's going to take more than that. But if everybody did what they could within their budget, we'd be much further along than we are today. What you can do today with the most meager of all budgets, you can change out a light bulb. If you like that, change some more if you can afford a few more. And they give rebates for these light bulbs at many utilities now. Get those energy efficient LED lights. They're nice warm colors now. They don't flicker, they dim. They work in every way possible. Get an energy saving thermostat. If you're not handy enough to put it up, get a electrician or plumber, heating air guy to come and do it. Bike riding if weather and fitness permit. Public transportation if it's available near you. And after the pandemic get a better handle on it, people be more comfortable taking public transportation. I understand that. Home gardening, home composting, weather stripping around your doors and windows. Everything I just mentioned, that's a list of 7 things, I think, all of them cheap and easy. And you don't run up to the top of Mount Everest is my point. You get to base camp and you get acclimated and then you climb as high as you can.
Yeah. We've got a thing called Clink here in Maine where we take all the cans and plastic and recycle that. And Maine is one of the 5-cent refund states. So do you recommend that as well?
Absolutely. We have a CRV, container recycling value. on our bottles and cans here in California. We recycle a lot. And as you probably already know, it's very hard to recycle a lot of the different polymers, a lot of the different resins now. We used to send all that stuff over to Asia, to Indonesia, and to China, and they stopped taking it. They don't want it anymore. You know, they were just having environmental problems of their own with it. And so we were filling up those empty shipping containers that we bought stuff that you could buy at Costco and Walmart coming to us in the States, then shipping back. We used to ship this plastic and they would recycle it. They did for a while, but they can't anymore. So we have to find a way here in this country to recycle number one, number two, number three, all those different resins that we use today, different plastic products. But most importantly, for me and many others, stop using single-use plastic. Get a metal water bottle. You know, get a, you know, I have one right in the car. Metal water bottle. Have a, you know, reusable mug when you go to Starbucks, and on and on. Stop using single-use plastic. Metal straw. Do something, but get away from that single use.
Good point. Somebody just said, great tips. Thanks, Chase, for writing in and giving us a comment. If you do want to put in comments while we're talking, please do. We'll look at them. I can see them, and we will communicate them back to Ed here. I just saw in the Land's End catalog a plastic a swimming suit made of recycled plastic bottles.
Yeah, any way you can
That's so
find
cool.
a home for that stuff, in a jacket, in a, you know, a ruler, in a park bench. We should be doing that. But also, the most effective way, and you got a big flood that's flooding your bathroom, the tub is overflowing, the first thing you want to do before you mop it up is to turn off the spigot. Turn off that spigot and stop using single-use plastic. I think this is a very good use of plastic. I think this is too. Computer things, my mouse or what have you. There's plastic in that. That's fine. That's not single-use. That's going to last 20 years probably, maybe more. So these can last longer than that. There's some things that are going to be around a while. That's a different story. But single-use plastic, I think its day, I hope, will be done soon, because of what it's doing to our oceans, to our rivers, to our parkways, and to us. We ingest about a credit card's worth of plastic and little tiny, you know, microbeads and stuff every week. A credit card's worth of plastic we're all taking into our body every week. And we eliminate a lot of it, but some of it we do not, and it's stored there, and it's not good for us.
What do you think about going to the grocery store and putting your groceries in plastic bags, but recycling the plastic bags? I'm seeing a lot of that. Like in Maine, you can go to the grocery store and bring your own bags. You can
Yeah.
bring your own plastic bags. You can do lots of different things. Do you think it should go back to brown paper, or is there anything there that's a good idea? I know that's kind of
Yeah, paper is one solution, but I prefer, I have all canvas bags for the
yeah.
large bags that carry the big items, and the smaller things like, you know, some oranges or some tangerines or some cherries or what have you. Any of that stuff, I have these smaller mesh bags you can buy online anywhere, just mesh produce bags. Just type it in at, you know, Amazon or Google or anything. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What did I just say? Mesh.
Amazon, Google, yeah,
Yeah,
mesh.
yeah. Mesh produce bags. Mesh
Good
produce
one.
bags, and you get them, and you don't have to use any. If you got them already in your house, feel free to use them. But stop taking them in, and use those mesh produce bags, and use the canvas bags to carry the big stuff, and you can get out of that plastic cycle.
Wonderful. Did you ever get your electric station wagon that you were talking about when you were at the New York University?
I never did get it. It was really only required for this one movie. They were looking for an electric station wagon for this movie I did called Page Master. The transportation captain was looking for it because it needed to be a station wagon for the story's sake. In this movie, Macaulay Culkin and Page Master, I played his dad, and they were afraid I was going to throw a fit if they had a regular station wagon, even though I just could roll it down the driveway. I never really drove it or turned it on.
Yeah.
So, but that's how nutty people thought I was back in the 90s. They were, oh, Ed's going to throw a fit because we didn't find an electric station wagon. I've never seen in my life an electric station wagon, and I don't really need one. I've got a fine electric car now, but that was the electric station wagon story back in 94 it was.
Yeah, I was just watching a few things before the interview, and that just struck a funny chord with me. Like an electric station wagon, complete with the rear facing back seat that you have to, you know, wave to all the traffic. And Chase
Yeah.
has a question here. He says, do you feel water bottling companies will ever be regulated? There are so many brands producing plastic bottles.
Yeah, I hope we find solutions. If it takes regulations, that's one thing. If it takes consumer behavior, you know, environmental change really is based on three pillars for me. I'm well known for the personal action one. Do what you can. Stop buying single-use plastic, recycle, ride a bike. That's the personal action. But the other two pillars are very important too. That's good legislation like the Clean Air Act that help clean up the air in LA, and also corporate responsibilities. That's it. Personal action, good legislation, and corporate responsibility. And they all are connected. They all work together. The reason that we're able to clean up the air in LA, and make no mistake about it, from 1970 when we started the first Earth Day to today, there are 4 times the cars in LA, millions more people, but a fraction of the smog. It's much, much less. The smog overall in LA is much less. That doesn't give a lot of peace to the people who live near the ports of Long Beach and San Pedro, the people living near some of these shipping fulfillment centers. There's lots of diesel trucks there, and they're getting bad pollution today. We can't leave them out of the mix. We've got to fix the air for them. But we have overall come a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have lots of questions here, but we have another question actually from a person named Olivia. Olivia says, I work in a retail store and the inventory comes in with tons of cardboard and plastic. It's just over the top. We just throw it out. Any ideas what can be done or what is being done about this? Love the questions, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, they're all good questions.
Yeah.
The only thing, cardboard has its challenges. You're taking out trees to make the original cardboard, but then it can be recycled, and that fiber up to a certain point can be reused and again till it finally starts to break down. Then it's mush and you can't use it anymore. But you can use it for a while. So cardboard can be recycled effectively for a while. Then you get into the plastic thing. We got to find ways. A lot of places have redesigned their shipping stuff so that there's no plastic or styrofoam. It's just all cardboard kind of done together in a way it's strong. It gives the cushioning that they wanted years ago from styrofoam. But nearly everybody's eliminated that horrible, white styrofoam stuff. And that stuff is not good in a number of ways. So, but we got to find homes for this. We shouldn't be making this stuff if we don't have a home for it. It should be cradle to cradle, like Bill McDonough says, not cradle to grave where it's born and it dies, but cradle to cradle. It should be one complete circle that everything takes, and find a way to recycle everything, fully recycle it, so it continues to have a life the way the earth does. That's the way the natural processes work. Leaves fall off the tree and they make, compost, and it breaks down and it gives nutrients to that same tree. That's a good cycle.
What do you think about our footprint, like our environmental footprint? Is there such a thing? What's yours?
There's a carbon footprint, of how much CO2 that you're creating in your daily activities, in your monthly, yearly activities. That's the thing. And I try to keep mine very low. I'm very lucky in a way because I bought my first electric car in 1970. And certainly there are fossil fuels to make that electricity. I know that. But then years later, I got solar. I eliminated my need for that. But most importantly, I want to bring up, I bought a wind turbine. I bought really half of a wind turbine in the California desert as part of a wind farm. So that was a 75 kilowatt wind turbine, which is very small by today's standards. They're a megawatt and a half today. But it was a small one in 1985. I owned half of one of those. That put out several homes worth of power every day from 1985 till just a few years ago, when I happily sold my rights to it so they could put up a bigger one again that is more efficient. But I had the bragging rights to say I'm not only carbon neutral, I'm carbon negative since 85 because of that one good investment in a wind turbine. And then I did all the other stuff. I, recycle and made my home very energy efficient, and ride the bike and take public transportation and all that other stuff, grow my own food, make my own compost, recycle my rainwater so I can use it for gardening, etc. There's a lot that I've done, and I'm very happy with it all. But that wind turbine gave me certain bragging rights for quite a while.
Mel, the podcast kitty, is with us. If you see a cat,
I see it. I love it.
That's my cat. She's a former feral cat turned total love cat, and she comes out during the podcast if she loves the guests. So you got some Mel love.
Right.
What do your kids say? Are they like, "Oh, Dad, come on," or are they very cooperative? Have they been cooperative from the get-go? Do you get pushback? How's that go?
I got pushback for a short time for a very specific reason in the late 80s from my now grown kids, who are both, let me flash forward for a second, they're both environmental champions that have a lower carbon footprint than me. My daughter works up at Tree People. She's a green activist. My son is an electrical engineer working in very important ways with electronics that are very good for the earth. I've got a great son and a great daughter and great grandkids. But back in the late 80s, my son and daughter they were then in their early teens. They were very concerned because my first wife and I had sadly divorced, and I lived in LA in a little house, a little 2-bedroom house. They'd see me on the weekends. They lived in Ojai, and the distance for me to get to Ojai or pick them up was beyond the range of my electric car. So I thought, oh, Dad, what are you doing? We're never going to see you again. No. And then the electric car, driving it around LA, I'm like, wait a minute, how much do you weigh? I'm thinking of getting over the hill over Mulholland to get into the valley. I'm asking people's weights. I mean, what am I, out of my mind? So there was a crazy time with electric cars because they were very primitive back in 1990, and certainly very primitive. The one I bought in 1970, even more primitive. So I put my kids through a lot, but they somehow, I guess, Stockholm syndrome, they identified with their captor, and they wound up being very green, wonderful, environmental activists.
I'm not so sure I'm supposed to laugh at that, but okay, I'm going to.
You are supposed to laugh at that. Intended as such. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. So I was thinking about just Ed in kindergarten. I don't know why. I usually ask people who come on the show what they were like in kindergarten. Have you always been like this? Have you always, thought about recycling or anything? I mean, who are you in kindergarten? What was Ed? Kindergarten Ed. Take us there for a minute.
Boy, there's a lot to unpack with kindergarten. I won't get into too much of it, but I had a real challenge when I was quite young. My mother was very sick at the time, and she died when I was 7. Oh. So all those years leading up to that, it was sad to lose a mother, but then I adjusted to that fairly quickly after she passed when I was 7. But then I discovered when I was 16 that woman was not my mother at all. It was a different woman who I would see every Christmas. So there was a lot going on in kindergarten that's very layered, and that's a whole session we could spend on that.
That's a whole other show, Ed.
But she was, my stepmother was a great lady who passed when I was 7. My mother, who I discovered as my mother, I knew her. She was a woman, not by any coincidence, a woman I was crazy about. I just loved something about this woman I loved. Turned out it was because she was, in fact, my mother. So, but at kindergarten, I learned a good many things about taking naps and sharing and what have you. I hope everybody learns that stuff then. But I had a bit of a problem with what was true and what was not true, maybe because of the lie with who my mother was. But I was kind of a Pinocchio for a while in my younger years. And I finally outgrew that, thank God, and decided to just, it's just hard enough to remember a lie if you're a liar. I can barely remember what the truth is. So, the truth is the easiest thing to remember, and it's always the best story. So I finally came onto that, many years ago, thank God. But in kindergarten, I learned those golden rules, and those are some of the best lessons you're going to learn.
Yeah. What about high school? Were you an actor? Were you always a budding actor?
I wanted to be an actor from the earliest age because my father was an actor and he made it look easy. And so I thought it was easy. It is not easy. And I thought, I should just get a series. Dad, why don't you get me a Wagon Train or a Perry Mason episode or Gunsmoke? I want a series. Can you make it happen now? Let's go. Wake me when I'm famous. I didn't have any idea about the amount of work that's involved in it. So I wanted to be an actor, but I made no headway whatsoever. And then finally, when I was 17 and I had taken some acting classes, imagine that, studying for something, a field you want to thrive in. I took some classes and I began to work as an actor. But I started working at 17. I've been working my whole life, so I'm very lucky. But I'm convinced if my dad had been a plumber, I'd be fitting pipe now. I wanted to do what he did, and that's just the way it was. He was a great influence on me in many ways, my father.
Yeah, tell us more about him. Everybody was like, please have him talk about his dad. And I think my dad just absolutely loved
I love talking about
father. Yeah, please. I'm just going to sit back and tell us.
I loved talking about my dad. I love my dad a lot. I'm one of those people with with the Mark Twain quote about, my father was such a idiot when I was a teenager. I could barely stand to be around the old fool. It's amazing how much smarter he got by the time I was 22, Yeah. And that's kind of the experience. I had a lot of notes from my father when I was a young man then as I got a bit older, I saw the reason why he did a lot of the things that he did, and had a lot of understanding about all of them. So he was a good influence in so many ways. He was a great actor. He won an Oscar, which you see behind me, I think, there from Sweet Bird of You, over this side. Sorry. There's an Oscar back there somewhere. He won for Best Supporting Actor in 1962 for a movie called Sweet Bird of Youth with Paul Newman and Geraldine Page. He won a Tony for being on Broadway in a wonderful play with Paul Muni called Inherit the Wind. He was one of the 12 jurors in 12 Angry Men, wonderful movie by Sidney Lumet with an incredible cast. My dad was juror number 10, was incredible in it, as he was in Patterns, a thing that Patterns was a great movie that he did that was written by Rod Serling, and he was great in that. He was great in everything that he did. Boomerang, this movie that Kazan directed, Elia Kazan, just a wonderful actor. And so I got to be around that, got to meet these wonderful actors and actresses, and was able to pursue that career myself. So I'll forever be grateful for him for teaching me acting without ever letting me know we're going to take an acting lesson now. He would have me run lines with him, which was a benefit to him, I know, but also was a benefit to me because he'd give me little notes. You'll help me out, Eddie, if you try this, I think. And I try something different with the performance. It's just the guy who's trying to cue him and help him with his lines. But in so doing, it was an acting class from a great actor named Ed Begley. So I'm very fortunate to have been born his son in many ways.
What did he love to do other than act? Just like a couple things that he loved to do other than act.
Oh, there's several. I've had several other things I've made money at, and a fairly good living at both. I was an assistant cameraman for years. I got into Screen Actors Guild in 1967 on My Three Sons. And I was literally expecting the phone to ring off the hook after I got into SAG and they aired the episode. You know, cue the crickets. You know, I got another job, maybe one job the next 9 months later or something. I can't remember, a year later. So I didn't want to be an out of work actor for too long. And I loved being on sets, and I loved cameras, motion picture cameras and still cameras. And I learned a lot about motion picture cameras on the set with my dad. And I took classes at Valley College in LA, Los Angeles Valley College. And I got into a camera union known as NABET, not the larger union, which is called the IATSE, the bigger union, but it was NABET. They've since merged years ago. But I was in that union and did a lot of commercials and other different work as a cameraman for many years, and did very well with it. But then acting started to beckon. I got into this show called Room 222, and I worked on that a bit. But I was also, then I bought a house when I was about 30, now that I think about it. I bought up my first house, and right after I bought the house, work slowed down, acting work. And I wasn't as skilled as I was with the earlier equipment. As a cameraman, I couldn't really go back to that. So I started working as a carpenter because I was quite handy. And I'd taken a class at LA Community Adult School down in Olympic in Los Angeles. And I learned a greater level of skill than my handyman stuff. And I started to make little wooden racks, like little spice racks or like bathroom racks out of walnut. And I started to make tables for people and started to make a chest of drawers. And I became something of, not like Harrison Ford. He's a real master carpenter and a master actor. I'm a journeyman actor and a journeyman carpenter. But I made a shed for David L. Lander and Kathy Lander from Laverne and Shirley. I made a table for Helena Kalinotes, who was in 5 Easy Pieces. Did lots of, this woman, Helena Kalinotes, she was in 5 Easy Pieces, this movie with Jack Nicholson.
Yep, I love that movie.
Yeah, wonderful movie. She's the one with Tony Basil in the back of the car go, baloney, we're going to Alaska. It's polluted here. The pollution's going to kill us all. She's smoking a cigarette and talking about the environment. She's a wonderful actor. She's still with us and doing wonderful stuff today. So she had me make her a table. Other people had me. I worked for Frank Gehry, the architect, putting up drywall and framing. I worked for a lot of friends. Michael McKean, I did some fencing for him. From Spinal Tap, Michael McKean, and Laverne and Shirley, Michael McKean. He and David Lander both gave me work. Carl Gottlieb, the guy who wrote the screenplay for Jaws, he and Allison Kane, his wife, gave me work building a whole wall unit, for his den. So I worked as a carpenter for quite a while, and then the acting picked up, and I didn't have to go back and do that. I could do that at my leisure.
Yeah. So really not handed to you. You really have had to work for what you have.
And my dad was a great influence in that way too. When I
Yeah.
said I wanted to be an actor, he said, "Good, pursue that, but you got to have more than one string to your bow. Do something else too. Find other things that you do." Because he was a guy who had done everything. He'd been a short order cook. He'd been in the Navy, worked in carnivals, worked in the wire mold plant in Hartford, Connecticut, where he grew up. He was a factory worker that made it late in life, really. So my dad had many things that he did, and he did very well in most of them.
Yeah, I love that. Do you was there a moment where you were like, okay, I've made it as an actor, I'm good to go? Do you have a pivotal moment like that?
I didn't think it at the. I mean, I knew it was a good thing when it finally happened. When I got a regular job in a series that went beyond a pilot, went beyond 13 episodes. In fact, I don't think I'd ever had 13 episodes before. No, I had not. I'd been a recurring character on Room 222, but I was for the first time a regular on a show that went 13 episodes and eventually 6 years. That show was called St. Elsewhere. And from that point to this, I've never really struggled. I've had some years where I had to tighten my belt, but I never really struggled after that. It's always been very much easier than it was in the earlier years. You're on a show like that with people like Denzel Washington and David Morrison, Bill Daniels, Ed Flanders, Bonnie Bartlett, Christina Pickles, Alfre Woodard. You're on a show like that for 6 years. You've got to really mess up to blow that one. You're going to work somewhere in entertainment. Maybe it's dinner theater, fine, but you're going to be working in the entertainment industry the rest of your life, unless you do something crazy. You run into a busload full of, llamas from, Tibet or what have you, with a needle in your arm. I don't know what you could do to mess up a good job like St. Elsewhere, but people have done it.
Well, yeah, to have you on, my husband said, a little bit before your time here, St. Elsewhere, but we got to go to Netflix here and or wherever it is. I think it's on Hulu, actually.
I think it is on Hulu. Yes, I've heard that.
So for those of you who want to binge watch this, what a great show. I was sitting there like, oh, okay, this is like House before House. I get it, kind of thing, or ER before ER. Shows like that, but different. I love the consideration and the compassion that the doctors have.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show. It's got a lot of heart. That's why it holds up today.
Yeah. So that was fun. And to see an actor like Denzel Washington too in it, I was like, oh, that's cool.
So much fun.
Did you know at the time, like, okay, he's going to be famous and they're all going to be, it's going to take off? Did you know
I
that?
really thought they all would do well, and they all did in different ways. There's a guy who really just played an orderly, and it was a small part. He maybe would do 5 or 6 episodes a year. His name was Eric Launaville, talented director who got his start on St. Elsewhere. He did 1 episode, and he did so good at it. He did 2 the next year. He did 3 the year after that, and he became one of the most sought-after directors in Hollywood. His name is Eric Launaville, and he was clearly, man of great talent back then. Denzel was always remarkable. We knew he was going to go places. Indeed, we didn't have to wait till after the show. During the show, he did Glory, he did Cry Freedom, he did these shows while we were still shooting St. Elsewhere. Wow. And Bruce Paltrow was good enough, and the wonderful Denzel acknowledged this at his, AFI tribute. It was a wonderful evening, and Denzel got the award he deserved, the AFI evening, that tribute, and he thanked Bruce Paltrow for letting him, bend the schedule a few weeks here or there so he could do Glory and Cry Freedom, which Bruce Paltrow was a great way in that way. He allowed me to do a movie called Accidental Tourist. He allowed Denzel to do these things. He nurtured our talents in so many ways. He was a great friend and a great producer.
That's a great movie. I love movies, and what you're in one of my favorite all-time movies, The In-Laws.
That's a classic. Peter Falk and Alan Serpentine, Shelley. Oh, I got to ask you something. What was the name of that guy that worked in the movie with us? Oh, that's right. His name was Ed Begley Jr. I think he's an albino. Very interesting guy. He was a good friend, Peter. We had the same birthday. We had so much fun over the years. A dear friend, he and Shara Denise, his wife, and Yeah, one of my closest friends was dear Peter Falk. So thank you for
Oh,
bringing him up.
oh, that yeah, I'm a little kid when that movie came out, and my dad let me watch it, and I could watch that movie over and over and over again. I've
Alan
always
Arkin, what a talent.
oh,
There's nobody better in the world than Alan Arkin. Well, he and Peter evenly matched. The two of them together. I mean, how lucky am I to be cast in that movie? I just, did backflips when I got that part.
oh, I bet. Yeah, those are people my whole life I've been like, wouldn't it be like you, like, wouldn't it be cool to someday like talk to them, interview them? So this is a really cool moment for me, Ed. I just want you to know that. This is so fun to be able to talk to you. This is like a moment in my
Oh,
life
Elizabeth,
that
thank
I'm
you.
never
Thank you.
gonna forget, and I'm so grateful, and it makes me a little teary, and so thank you, because I
Thank
love
you.
movies. My dad would have loved this, by the way, just so you know.
I'll be thinking of him, that's for
Oh,
sure.
please. Yeah, Jim Hamilton, say some prayers. So, we always ask our guests if they have an incredible yes moment in their life, and an incredible yes is where hang on, I'm a little choked up with my dad stuff. It is where you said yes to someone or something, and it completely changed your life. And I think people sometimes have many of them, but can you think of one or two of those where you said yes to someone or something, and it just totally changed your life?
Yes, my current wife, Rochelle Carson.
Yeah.
There's a couple of yeses there that I didn't want at all. Number one was the relationship with her. I did everything to not have a relationship with her the
Really?
first 3 years. I changed my number once. I so didn't thought
I
I didn't
love
want,
her.
and then one day I woke up to realize she's absolutely the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. But for 3 years, I had it way wrong.
Yeah.
That's one. Number two, having our beautiful 22-year-old daughter. I
Mm.
didn't want it at all. I had two kids, zero population growth. I'd had my two kids with Ingrid, my previous wife. And she and I were very close, by the way, after we divorced. And Rochelle, my current wife, and I would go up and visit her. But that's two kids. That's my limit. And Rochelle argued correctly, of course. Wait a minute. There's three people, you and Ingrid and me. Three kids would be three kids and three adults is still zero growth. And so we had this wonderful surprise, Hayden. The minute that I heard that news that Rochelle was pregnant, I flipped a switch and was instantly from like, I don't want any more kids to over the moon, joyously happy for every year, every minute from those 20, during these past 22 some odd years. And that was number two, the relationship, the child. And then number three was moving to this house that you see me in right now, this house. I was in a house I had with my first wife that we had kind of our LA place that we had. We lived up in Ojai, but we had a little house in town that we would, we just bought it at the end of St. Elsewhere. Then St. Elsewhere got canceled right after we bought the house. We wanted to have a place in town. So if we spent the night in LA, we'd have a place to stay and I'd have a nice place to work on the seventh year of St. Elsewhere. That didn't happen. So I stayed in this little house and I was there 26 years and Rochelle kicking and screaming, decided that we should move into another house, this house, which we built from the ground up that I'm in right this second, this house. And I didn't want to move. The minute that I spent the first night in here, I flipped a similar switch and I've been elated. It was the next best thing I did. Relationship, child, house.
Thank you.
Rochelle's batting 1,000, so I got to listen to her more often.
Yeah, I was telling you before we went on, she's beautiful. She's just a lovely soul.
And she's very funny too.
Yeah.
So if you can laugh with somebody, that's got to count for a lot. I hope it does.
Don't you think? Yeah, that's so important. Tell us about the house. That the house is that's a special house.
Yeah, what happened was I gave Rochelle some criteria because, again, I did not want to move at all. So I made it impossible for her. We had some money from doing this show, Living with Ed, for a few years. We'd done it 3 years. And so she wanted to move into this street specifically and this house specifically. Oh, no, she hadn't seen the house yet. She wanted to move from where we were. She wanted to move somewhere. So I said, okay, Rochelle, here's the deal. If you can find a house that has this size backyard so I can have a bigger vegetable garden, has a south-facing roof so I can get my solar up there and they work efficiently with no trees, no shading. And then also I want a good area so I can put a rainwater tank on the ground. And you can do it I wrote down a number, for this price, I'll move. She'll never find it. Okay, honey, thanks. Good luck. Within a few days, she found just exactly such a house. It had the right sized yard for a garden, good place for a rainwater tank and a south-facing roof, and there was no shading on the roof at all for the solar panels. And so I went, okay, honey, we'll do it. I forgot about something called the winter solstice. The sun moves at a sharp angle to the south during the winter, and that house, I didn't really get the proper planner. There's a device that you use that can tell you all that. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a very important device for people installing solar. I didn't borrow one from somebody and go put it up on my roof and look at it. During the late fall to the early spring, the house roof was covered with shade from the big tree to the south. It's a giant oak tree, and you never, ever, ever, I wouldn't move into this house if it meant cutting down an oak tree. I wouldn't do it. Just would. It's the oak tree is 100 years old. There's no way I'm going to move it, cut it down even to get solar panel on my roof. Not going to happen. So what we realized is we had to build from the ground up. We couldn't use any of the old house. We had to build a 2 stories to get those panels out of the shade of this big oak tree. Now the panels were in open sun year round. And then we also got to do other things that were important. We had 12-inch thick walls, which we have to this day. We had passive solar design where everything, all the glass on the house is facing the south side. So it gets more heat from the sun during the winter and fall. And it gets less heat during the summer when the sun's straight up. So we did 10,000 gallon rainwater tank buried underground, gray water system with the shower and laundry. All that water goes out to irrigate the trees. High efficiency, 4 units of heating and air with different zones. So if Rochelle wants it a certain temperature there, you don't have to heat or cool the whole house for it. So on and on. There's so much efficiencies in this house. It's called a LEED platinum home. There's silver, gold, then there's platinum. And we got that platinum. And with platinum rating, that's like miles per gallon on a car. It's that for a house. It's the LEED standard. Leadership in environment, leadership in energy and environmental design. LEED. LEED, LEED is what it is. And we got a LEED platinum rating, which is, there's not that many homes, residential, properties in the United States that have it. Maybe 150 or 200. There's a lot of commercial buildings that have it, but there's not that many for a whole nation that have achieved that status, and we did it. So you have to do everything, even down to the construction process. How much waste are you creating that's going into a landfill? How much are you recycling? Where does your material come from? Are you getting Italian marble, where it's shipped over from Italy in a boat, with all the energy it takes to get that giant stone from, Italy to here or from some other country to here? We sourced everything locally when we could. We got nothing like long distance Italian marble, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And they look at all that and you get points for all of it. We made all our points. So this is a LEED platinum home, which is a wave of the future. This is what people realize they have to start doing now, not just to get a LEED rating, but for the future of the planet.
Do people copy your home? Like, I don't know if that's a good question or not, but do people want the plans for it or to know more information from you all the time? Like, are you a consultant when people
I
build
put a
those
lot of the
homes?
information on the website, edbegley.com or begleyliving.com. Either one will take you to all the info about the house. We give a tour of the house and you can see how it all works. But there's a couple things I want to, call out for a second, because I didn't know about them when we built the house. I know about insulation. I know about solar panels. I've had all that stuff for many decades.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know about was something called act on demand. When you turn on the faucet, the hot water faucet in my old house and any house I'd ever been in, turn it on to get hot water, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3
forever.
Mississippi, 28 Mississippi, 27 Mississippi. And then so now you got hot water in the bath or at the kitchen sink.
Forever.
The solution to that has been around for years. One solution, which is to put something called a circulating pump. Your plumber makes the plumbing to that tap as a loop. And then there's a circulating pump that circulates that hot water slowly through that loop. So you have hot water, 1.5 Mississippi, you've got hot water at the tap. But there's a problem with that, probably you picked up on right away. You've got a pump running all the time, electricity being used to run that motor and what else are you doing? If you're running that hot water through the loop that goes through your house, sometimes a cold part of your house, you're cooling that water measurably and you have to heat it again and heat it again. The water heater works a lot harder if you to have hot water there. But now I finally get to the real solution, which is called Act on Demand. It has the same loop coming from the hot water heater to the tap. All that's the same. The same motor, but there's a light sensor up in the ceiling in every bathroom and in the kitchen. Every bathroom and the kitchen has a sensor, a motion detector, not a light sensor, sorry, a motion detector. When you come into the kitchen, silently in the basement, comes on that little motor. It starts circulating it then, not at night when you sleep, not during the day when you're away. It only comes on when someone goes in the kitchen. They might want some hot water, and you usually do, to wash your hands in the bathroom. You're always going to want hot water these days when you go in to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
You come home from your car, you're going to wash your hands these days, as you should.
Yeah.
So that's a great
clever.
device.
And
Act on Demand is called.
Act on Demand. And that's something any home could have? Or is that like something you need to build in?
It's not for everybody. There might be some budgetary requirements that people can't meet. It's not really expensive, but it's not really cheap either. But you sure get your money back in like 2.5 years with all the natural gas or electricity you're going to save, by not, having, and water you're going to save by not having, that tap on all the time. Can I tell one more kind of new thing that I found that I discovered that I never knew about while we were building the house, and my contractor, Scott Harris, found them. The other one is called Hot Sun. It's a kind of solar, kind of flexible, what they used to call solar roll. It's a black kind of solar tubing that you can put up. And I had an Ojai when we lived there. It's very cheap solar for a pool. It's called solar roll. It's basically that, with an important distinction. You put it on the back, the reverse, the flip side of your solar electric panels. Why are you doing that? Because there's tremendous heat coming to those solar panels. If you've ever been near a solar panel in the sun, you touch it. Oh, damn, I burned my hand. Because it's almost black. It's so dark blue. It often looks black that if you put your hand on it, you would burn your hand. Solar panels, when they get hot, lose efficiency. Solar hot water panels do not. You want them to get as hot as you can, but solar electric panels lose efficiency. 15% efficiency they lose when you get them hot. So you're cooling the panel and you're heating water for the pool, because Rochelle insisted we keep the pool. It was a weird geometric shape when we moved in. I said, you can keep it if we can cover it so you don't have evaporation, and to get it warmer, because I wasn't going to have a heater in the backyard using natural gas or electricity for a pool. It's a frivolous expense, in my opinion. She wanted it. You've got to work with your partners in life. So she got her pool, but then it wasn't warm enough. With Hot Sun, it's now 91 degrees from excess heat that is also cooling my panels and making them more efficient. Once again, it's called Hot Sun, H2O Sun. H2O, like the formula for water. H2O Sun is another way to search it.
Yeah, we have a pool and a solar blanket, but it's never really that warm, especially here in Maine. But it works.
California stays a little bit warmer. It was been in the low 30s and high 40s recently, but now it's starting to warm up a little bit. And I turned on the the Hot Sun system so it would come on again, and the water heated up the past day and a half, 10 degrees so far, and climbing. So it'll be a comfortable temperature for me in 2 or 3 days now. It takes a while for it to gradually, when the water gets that cold from wintertime, gets down into the 40s here. The pool water does. I'm probably colder than that where you are. And so you got to heat it up again over the course of a few days, which I don't mind waiting.
Yeah. We moved here from Tahoe. Our sons were born in the Walnut Creek area, and we had a house in Tahoe, and then we moved to Maine back in 2004. So we've been in Maine a while, but it's hard to get used to temperatures that dip below 70 in here still. This many years later, it's like it dips below 70. I'm like, I'm cold.
I love Maine and I love Tahoe too. I've spent time in both, and both great places to live.
They're very similar in a way too.
It's
the ocean, I guess, of course, but
I can see that.
It feels like a postcard here, just like it used to in Tahoe. It's very beautiful here. Very easy to live here. Okay, let's go back to acting again, just for fun. We'll bounce back and forth a little bit, just so we cover all the bases with everybody. But people want to know about Young Sheldon and your role there. Are you having fun?
Elizabeth, I'm having so much fun. I didn't know that another role like this would come along in my twilight years here at St. Elsewhere when I was in my early 30s. I was on 6 Feet Under in the 90s. You know, I've had a few other wonderful shows. Arrested Development I got to do, and Better Call Saul, and love those shows.
Yeah.
But I'm on Young Sheldon a lot. It's like I'm a semi-regular or something. And the writers write stuff for me I couldn't have dreamed in my life that people would give me. Just this great stuff with this wonderful young kid, Ian,
Yeah.
you know, and the cast is just great. I have a lot of scenes with Wallace Shawn. Wallace Shawn and I have a lot of scenes together. And with Annie Potts, who plays Meemaw.
I love her. How is she?
She's so great.
She's another
a,
one. I grew
a
up
dear
with her.
lady and a wonderful actress. I just love working with her. It's just a dream come true. Steve Milaro is the showrunner, and he writes this. He and his writing team write stuff for me I just couldn't imagine. It's such a treat to do that. I look forward to each script, reading it, and I'm a fan of the show. If I stopped being on it tomorrow, I would watch it every Thursday. I love the show. You know why? Because it's funny, and it's also a wonderful, sweet show with a lot of heart. It's a love letter to people in Texas, you know, in parts of the country, you know, other than New York and California. It's a wonderful show with a lot of heart that we need more than ever now. Yeah. And it's funny. It's just
very funny. Yeah.
I love everything about it.
He seems like a sweet kid. He just seems like a really sweet kid.
He is. He's very smart and very sweet. He's got his head straight on his shoulders. He doesn't, you know, have any, you know, odd ways of thinking the way young and old people get sometimes in this business. You know, people start thinking things that aren't productive for any part of their life, but he doesn't do that. His mother's wonderful. His father's an actor too on Broadway and Hamilton, I believe. And, you know, he's got wonderful parents, and I haven't met his dad yet, but I know of him, and I see his mother all the time. She's terrific. He's a great kid. That's just a wonderful person. I'm delighted to work with him.
Yeah. Beautiful. Do you have any favorite, I love asking you this question because it's going to be a fun one. Do you have any favorite actors or actresses that you've worked?
I don't know where to begin. I'll try. Well, begin at the obvious. I did a movie with Meryl Streep, you know, shoot me, I'm done. There's nothing. How's it going to get any better than that? I worked with Jack Nicholson in the 70s on a movie that he directed called Going South. I worked with Bob Hoskins, Michael Caine, John Lithgow, you know, all the cast of St. Elsewhere I mentioned. I worked with Kirk Douglas. I've worked with, you know.
Oops, sorry, dropped my pen.
I've worked with incredible people my whole career. I don't want to get a list of everybody, but I have worked with tremendous actors over the years, and I just feel blessed beyond words.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have any absolute favorites, or are you not allowed to play favorites?
I don't want to play favorites. It's impossible with that crowd. But wait a minute. Indulge me if you will. I'm going to read you a list because I'm writing my memoirs. I'm writing my memoirs right now, and there's a list.
Oh.
I do a thing. I talk about how when I was a young man, I had a slim grasp of the truth, but I wasn't a very good liar. And so then because I wasn't a very good liar, I say, and in this next passage, I'm going to read you a list of things, and one of them is a lie. And so then I list, and among that, I list the people that I work with. So I'll read, since you asked, I'll read that list. Here are the list of the people I've not only worked with, but gotten to know. Kirk Douglas, Meryl Streep, Peter Falk, Jessica Tandy, Alan Arkin, Michael Caine, Billy Wilder, Richard Pryor, Dave Mamet, Jeff Goldblum, Eric Idle, Jane Fonda, Denzel Washington, Buck Henry, Don Henley, Gina Davis, Dabney Coleman, Lily Tomlin, Harry Dean Stanton, Leonardo DiCaprio, Vince Gilligan, Richard Dreyfuss, Michael Richards, Danny Glover, Harvey Keitel, John Cleese, William Hurt, Larry Kasdan, Fred Willard, Larry David, Tom Waits, Angelica Houston, George Siegel, Pam Grier, Penny Marshall, Ed Asner, Diane Keaton, Alfred Woodard, Jim Carrey, Gary Shandling, Jeff Bridges, Yaphet Kotto, Cindy Williams, Robin Williams, I knew was a friend, Rob Reiner, and Christopher Guest. How's that for a list? You asked for it.
I love it.
When I finally read, wait, I got it right here. I got a list right here. And look for very soon, soon being maybe a year, I don't know when, but I'll finish writing up my memoirs, and then I'll publish them, and you'll be able to buy it if you want to for 25 cents at Marshall's.
Do you know that I used to do make cookies for Robin Williams? He loved
I
my
loved
chocolate chip
Robin
cookies.
Williams so much. He was a
Oh,
great
love him.
actor, a great comedian, and we used to go bike riding together.
Really?
He was a great bike rider. He was a great mountain
Oh,
biker. We go up in the hills and ride mountain bikes with the mayor of Los Angeles at the time, Dick Reardon.
yeah.
We had dinners together in Hawaii. We spent time in the States together. I was there for his 40th birthday in Napa.
Mm,
I just what a loss. I don't want
yeah.
to dwell on it too much. It's so
No,
emotional still. I
that
loved
hurts.
him.
Yeah, that hurt everybody. I
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Ed Asner on this show many years ago.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. He was a dear, dear friend. We worked together many times, and I just loved him. He was
I love
a
him.
great man in every sense of the word.
Yeah, the doorbell rang during our show and he answered it. It's hilarious. He got up
Oh,
and answered
that's
the
great.
door. It's
That's
perfect.
funny.
Like, you mind if I go answer the door? I'm like, nope, it's your show, Ed. You go
Part
for
of
it.
the show. That's reality. Yep.
Hilarious. Oh, that was funny. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Yeah, you go answer your door. It's just funny. Oh, what a beautiful list. What a fun, and so you're okay, so you're writing your memoir.
Yes.
Ah, so when does that come out, or what are you gonna do with that? Do you know yet, or we're allowed to know that? You
After
know,
after about 27 different people whose opinion I respect said, "You got to write this down.
yeah.
This thing that happened with you, where you went up to visit a friend in the hills in Chatsworth there and smoked a joint with this guy. It turned out to be Charles Manson. I
Mm,
smoked a joint with a guy that turned out to be, I don't know, he's just some wacky guy in the hills. That and all kinds of other crazy things. I don't want to spoil some of the surprises, but I feel like this character, Zelig, in a Woody Allen movie of the same name, where he winds up in all these historical things like Forrest Gump. He's
yeah,
there, at different places in our collective history and memory. Forrest Gump is, and one wonders how he got there, and that's been kind of my reaction.
mm,
How did I get so lucky to be born Ed Begley's son, so I could do all the things I did and wind up in all the places that I wound up in, where I got to know, not only meet the Beatles, but know them and know all these people on the list. It's
so cool.
extraordinary. It's just, I feel blessed. Cesar Chavez was a dear friend of mine, the labor leader, United Farm Workers Union. Cesar Chavez, I got to be one of the people that had the sadness, but the honor of carrying his coffin through the streets of Delano.
Mm,
I have good friends like Jeff Goldblum in my life and other such people who are Christopher Guest, who's given me great work and been a great friend. And I talk about all that. Marlon Brando was a dear friend of mine. Jack
cool.
Nicholson still is. I talk about a lot of that just being an oddball fly on the wall from Van Nuys, this Valley kid that got to be, meshed in all this film history, with no real credentials to do so. I just happened to
Yeah.
show up one day and be invited inside.
Yeah. You know what I like about the list too is, people are yes, people are great actors, but people are people. They're fascinating. Like to be able to sit here with you for an hour, I find it just absolutely fascinating to be able to speak with you. So it's neat people are still people and they have all these hobbies and talents and gifts and so forth. And I love that. Just absolutely love
Well,
it. Just
I
wonderful.
feel blessed and to still be working and still have so many of these people in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so glad that even though we divorced, Ingrid and I, my first wife and I, we got to be friendly, then friends, then best friends, then like best friends, brother and sister that just loved her so deeply
Yeah.
for all of her wonderful life. She sadly passed years ago. So how lucky am I to have made peace with somebody that, things can go the opposite direction when you have a divorce, and neither of us allow that to happen. I
Yeah.
won't dwell on it. I don't want to get emotional here on your wonderful show, but
Yeah.
she was a great lady, and I'm so lucky to have had her in my life and have the two wonderful kids that we had together, and have the grandchildren I have together, and have this beautiful daughter with my new wife. I don't know. I won the lottery. I don't remember even buying a ticket, Elizabeth. I just won the lottery without purchasing a ticket. I'm a very lucky man.
Yeah. What's it like to be authentic? Like authentically you in the 90s talk about authenticity and the importance of us all being authentically us and accepting our own selves and allowing, we sometimes we feel like people don't like us when we're authentic.
I had to start being authentic in 1979, when I finally stopped doing some things that were going to kill me, I don't want to go into great detail about it, but I certainly needed help and some sort of a program. I needed other people to do it with. I couldn't do it alone, the challenge I was facing in 1979. And one of the best ways to get sober, to do anything like that, is to practice a program of what they call rigorous honesty. And when you're wrong, promptly admit it. So I started doing that. And as I said earlier, I was given to fabrications when I was quite young. I talk about in the book, there was one point where Sister Killian out in Merrick, Long Island, where I lived, asked me for my homework. And I went, oh, I threw it in the trash can. It must have fallen off your desk, and here it is. Takes it out in the hallway, dumps out the trash, said, find it. Elizabeth, I was in the trash can looking for 5 full minutes for that homework in that trash can. I was never going to find it because it wasn't there. And I wasn't looking for it for show, to show her I'm looking. I was really looking for it, expecting to find it.
Yeah.
For 5. Now, I was only 6 or 7 at the time, so I guess I was capable. You could excuse that kind of delusion. But I woke up a little bit then, and then continued to in other ways where lies got me in trouble. For instance, lies to my first wife that caused the problems that caused us to get divorced. Dishonesty. I got rigorously honest in 1979 when I got sober, but I still didn't practice it with, a small group, I guess about half the population of the planet, called women. I still kind of chose to not be honest with women for years. And this is happening with a man who's ostensibly sober. So I finally got well in all those areas, many years ago now. And so that's wonderful. I have a marriage that I imagine will be successful for many more years. You never know what life is going to throw you, but it won't happen through any fault of mine this time. It won't. And I have a wonderful wife this time too. And so I don't imagine anybody's going to make any big mistakes like that. So one can learn, one can grow. And I have in some key ways. I haven't had a drink or drug since 1979. And I'm very proud of that. And my life is very good today because of that level of rigorous honesty, as they say.
Yeah. I'm a lifelong non-drinker and don't do drugs or anything like that. I don't know. I made a choice back in high school to just not do it. I don't know why or what. It's like I don't know. It's almost like a foreign substance. I had one, like a funky year in college, which is kind of in my book that I write about. But other than that, just not I don't know. I don't know. My body just does not agree with the stuff. So that's something about me that's been authentically hard to do.
Yeah, I didn't let any of that stop me. All that stuff happened to me too. My body rejected everything. I wouldn't be deterred. I stayed with it. Run into cars, get into trouble with the police, all that stuff. Nope. Hook me up again. Let's have some more Bloody Marys this morning. Let's start.
Oh.
And that's a crazy way to live and a sure way to die. And fortunately, that didn't happen. So I got to experience the things I did these past 72 years. I'm just blessed.
Okay, I got to hold this up. So cute. I hope I'm holding it up right to make sure. Yeah. Talk about this. I'm missing one or maybe more, but let's talk about your products. How cute.
Back when I started in 1970, I would use vinegar and water instead of some harsh cleanser, like Formula 409 or Windex. I would use baking soda instead of Comet. But basically, it's just vinegar and it's just baking soda. It's not going to clean as well as some of these other products. So I vowed to one day find somebody with a good formula to make non-toxic products that clean really well. And I had a wonderful company of my own called Begley's Best for years. And I bought this formula from a guy. I didn't own the formula, but I kind of rented it from him to make not this product, but one before it. One that preceded. You wouldn't have the original products here in your home. But these products that you're showing, I started selling 5 years ago now with a man called Mark Cunningham at Lab Clean. That's my new line. And the old line is long gone. Those products don't exist anymore. But they cleaned every bit as good as the harsh products. And this one, you've got a pet stain and odor remover right there, I believe.
Smells good too.
Yeah, it smells good because it is good. It's not going to hurt anybody. Because you got kids down on the floor crawling around the kitchen or on the wood floors in the living room. You got pets there licking their paws, kids licking their fingers. You don't want to have something toxic on the floor for a floor cleaner or for pet stain and odor remover on the carpet. You've got those wonderful frail small creatures who you don't want to have toxics in their system. So it cleans good. It is good. And I've been selling them for years. You can go to edbegley.com and find them. You can just do a Google search, Begley cleaning, and it'll come right up. Amazon, just type in Begley cleaning. It'll pop right up and you can buy them. And I'm telling Elizabeth, try them. They work as good as anything you've ever used, and 100% non-toxic and safe.
Yeah. And I love this because our food allergy community is going to love this too. So we always look for products in our food allergy community, aside from food, of course, because a lot of products have different things in them and that make us sick. And these are beautiful. So they're,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm excited about that. So we also have Best Ever You awards. So we're going to be giving those our Best Ever You awards. So you'll see that.
Right.
Coming up. So, gosh, okay, we're at an hour and I really want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to keep you on and on and on here, but I want to make sure we end with something that you want to talk about, of course. If I forgot anything that you wanted to talk about, I wanted to mention too, that I think your products are going to be on chewy.com.
Yes, I believe they are. That's happening soon. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've heard that. That's been reported to me, and I can't say they're on there now, but I'm told they will be. So thank you for remembering that, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so Amazon, Walmart, Chewy.com, and it's Begley's Earth Responsible product. And who's the dog? Do you love dogs?
Yeah, we've got a dog right now. My daughter has a dog called Ducky. We've had a few dogs over the years. We've had cats. We love our animal friends, and so. Like you, I've had a lot of feral cats that I fixed, and some of them I've even been able to get into the house. Some of them lived out in the yard for years. But I love my feral friends. I love my house friends, and it's great. And I do have to go now, but I wanted to leave you with this thought. It's something that occurred to me many years ago. A dear friend said this to me, and the best thing I can think of when making any decision in my life is to live simply so that others may simply live. And I'll leave everybody to think about that tonight. And I know you do that in your life, Elizabeth. And I'm just so happy and grateful to spend this time with you. It's been just wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here. It's just a true honor and a true joy. And I wish you just all the best in everything you continue to do. So much fun to be able to speak with you. We're all so grateful. And from here, we're going to take this show and take the audio portion and put it over on our podcast. We'll put this up on YouTube, and we will continue to share your wisdom with as many people as we can in your products. So thank you so much. So much fun to learn about you more and have you here. So I hate ending shows. So I'm going to let you end it and just listen to what you said, and just go with your website one more time, because your website is beautiful.
Just go to edbegley.com. That's the easiest way to remember it is edbegley.com. Or BegleyLiving.com, if you can remember that. But people, what was that? Begley Life, Begley Love, Begley Living is one way, but EdBegley.com is probably the easiest. Or to search online for any of their products, or just, Begley cleaning products. It'll come right up like that.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Ed, and thank you, everyone, for being with us. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Elizabeth. What a joy.